All right. Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Shane Pliska. Shane, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. I'm excited to be here.
I'll tell you what, I am too. I have really been looking forward to our conversation today, Shane, especially after the initial conversation that we had a little bit ago, where, man, I, well, what does suffice to say? I've been looking forward to this. And so this is going to be good. And so we're going to talk a lot about your business and stuff, and we're going to talk partly about relationships today that have just been really instrumental in your life and in your business and stuff. I just want to start by just asking a real simple question to get us rolling, and then we can dig deeper from there. But I'll start by asking you, Shane, what do you do and who do you serve?
That's a great question. I run a national interior landscape company, and we serve major brands and Fortune 500 companies across the United States by providing them with tropical plants and greenery and the ongoing maintenance service. It is a recurring revenue model. Some people call it the subscription service these days. But we've been at it for 53 years. I am the
Wow.
second generation of my business. And locally, we're based in Michigan. Believe it or not, locally, we're best known because we converted our legacy greenhouse into a wedding venue.
Yeah.
And we're known for having one of the most popular wedding venues in the state of Michigan. I'm a multifaceted entrepreneur, accidentally in the hospitality business. But I would say that all business is hospitality in most regards.
I love that. I love that. And when you told me before, when we were talking, when you were telling me about your wedding venue, uh, it's not just for local folks. People come in from out of state to because your venue is so well known. Is that right?
It is. Probably about 50% of our brides and grooms live outside of the state of Michigan. They typically have a family tie, but we're seeing more and more larger percentages of people who are choosing to specifically come to Michigan because our venue is so beautiful, and quite honestly, the Instagram photographs are the proof.
Yeah.
It achieves an experience and also photographs that are completely worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and we'll make sure. So I love how we're planting seeds here, now, Shane, and now people are already thinking like, well, I want to check this out. And so we'll, if they're not already Googling you and stuff, we'll make sure that we include some links for you so you can check out some stuff. And so let's back up a little bit because one thing I do know from talking with you earlier is you really have an amazing backstory. So let's dig into like some of the how did you get in to doing what you do, Shane? I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a fireman, and I never did become a fireman. But I'll tell you what, I would have never imagined I'd be doing what I do now either. And yet, I am so grateful that I do. And so, what is your backstory? How did we get here, Shane?
Sure. Well, I grew up in my family's greenhouse operation. I was,
Okay.
watering plants since I was a toddler. But that wasn't real where the path I thought I was going to take. My passion, I wanted to become a filmmaker.
Oh,
I, you know, moved out to Boston for film school. I eventually went to Los Angeles. And then I came back into the family business, not because it was a failure, but because I knew in my heart I was an entrepreneur. And me and my dad decided, okay, we're going to make a go at this for the next 10 years to see how we could transform my family's business from a mom and pop to a professional, national company to where it is today. It's taken a lot of twists and turns. And I would say one of the more surprising parts of it was the twist and turn for us to convert our greenhouse into a wedding venue, because that took me back to my show business roots. And so the way that we produce a wedding is a production mentality, in terms of how the bride is the star of our show, and the show always must go on. And so that's where I'm able to tap into that background and that passion, to deliver an incredible experience, that is captured on camera, but most importantly, it's an experience that you see live and you can feel it with the plants.
Yeah.
Um, and these lessons, I would say, if I were to go right from film school to running weddings, I would not have understood how to do it without learning the business of how plants enhance environments.
Okay.
And
Okay.
what I mean by that is, um, I had there was a moment in our business where we opened up a office in Las Vegas, and we were doing business with the casinos primarily at the time when they were outsourcing a whole lot. And I recently saw a clip of Steve Wynn, and he said the secret to his success for his hotels, and it was sunlight, water, and plants and flowers,
Mm,
for his hospitality experiences. And so the what I learned was, I understood, I had a foundation of show business, learning about film
mhm.
theoretically, but it was my hands-on experience working with major hospitality operators to truly understand how show business and hospitality converge into creating an unforgettable experience, where it's not about the food, it's not about the individual flowers, it is how people feel.
Wow.
And that is what we do. We crack the code on how do we develop these spaces and build these spaces to influence how people feel. And that's what we do for our commercial customers.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why the hospitality customers and retail customers specifically, hire us
Mhm.
to provide the plants and the greenery, and one of the reasons why they choose to include it in their designs.
Wow. So I would be willing to bet that most people have never given it this much deep thought before, that, to the placement of plants and greenery and flowers and all of that kind of stuff, that they have such an impact on, like what you said, on how we feel. And we've all heard, especially as entrepreneurs, we've all heard the phrase that, it's people remember, how you make them feel long after they have totally forgot about anything that we've said. People know, when they're around us, how we make them feel when they're around us is everything. And you have like totally figured, I mean, heck, this is why people are coming to your wedding venue from out of state, because of it's an experience. It's a feeling that they get, that I want to experience that. And they can't get that anywhere else.
Yeah, and exactly, because I went from being more or less a salesperson selling plants, trying to tell my customers that this is part of it, but telling isn't the story. It's actually doing it.
Yeah.
It is really understanding all of those moving parts together as just not the plants. It is the plants are part of it, okay? But it's also an element that is timeless and universal, okay? So humans, as just like as a species, we are biologically hardwired, to be attracted to nature.
Mhm.
That's just a biological fact. It's called biophilia. And that term has been trending in architecture in recent years, but I got to tell you, the casino operators knew about it long before it was trending at AIA. And I got to say, even before then, if you take a look at the design of a grocery store, there is a reason why when you first enter a grocery store, you are greeted with plants, flowers, then produce in that order. Um,
Yeah.
if you were
Wow.
to enter a store that had a different order of, let's say, processed foods or chips, That's a convenience store. That's not a grocery store. And so the order in which you see things when you walk into that environment actually resets the brain, and it influences how much people spend, because every single square inch of a grocery store is incredibly valuable real estate. And that is a science that was perfected long before architects and designers were talking about these things. These are things that Steve Wynn knew in the 1970s, when he designed the Golden Nugget. Um, it influences behavior, and for him, and for the gaming industry, they measure not necessarily the spend, but how much people put at risk. And what you put at risk at a casino is dependent on how you feel. And so that's why I like to use this as a great analogy, because it's all about the psychology. And so I would say that if you're a professional, like a lawyer, a financial advisor, anyone who is selling services where they're dependent on trusting you as an individual, simply by adding a plant into your office makes you automatically be perceived as more human.
Wow. Wow. You
Now,
know, oh, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
yeah. Now, a sociologist told me that he said through group reference theory. I can't think of a study that actually has concluded that, but I can tell you that there are studies that show where if an executive has a clean desk and no personal photographs, that someone's less likely to trust them. And I would like to take the step further, and I would say that if there isn't anything living in that experience, and I'd say in the first impression when you walk in the door, you don't necessarily have to have a jungle around you, but it certainly makes a big difference.
Wow. Well, and I'm sitting here listening to everything you're saying, Shane, and I'm thinking about an experience which I want to share. But I also notice you've got a plant sitting right next to you there, and I also notice I don't. And now I'm thinking like, well, maybe I need to get a plant and put it in my office too and stuff. Because, when you're talking, so you're talking about the casino and how, the casinos figured out a long time ago that having the plants and flowers and all this stuff makes people feel better, which in turn makes them, causes them to gamble more when they feel better. I'm just thinking of my local grocery store here in my hometown. There's two entrances at the
Hmm.
store. The left-hand entrance takes you in right next to the deli and the bakery and then some food aisles and stuff. The right-hand entrance takes you right into the floral and the produce section and all of that. And I'm like, I'm sitting here listening to you. It's like, you know what? I always go in the right hand entrance in the grocery store. I prefer to go in that entrance. And I've never even thought about it until just now. And at nighttime, at 8 p.m. at night, that store, they close that entrance. And if I ever do find myself, I don't find myself there a lot after 8 p.m. But when I do, I'm always like, oh, shoot, they got the entrance closed. I got to go to the other entrance. And it never occurred to me, but I'm listening to you going, that's what's going on. I like going in that entrance. Like you said, it just makes you feel better. And heck, I probably spend more money in the grocery store when I feel better. And so,
Yeah, I mean, I would say that that entire experience is designed. People are generally like to move in a right-hand direction. Typically, our Americans do. So that is part of our habits. But everything that you see from the end caps, in terms of your sight lines, all of that is truly a scientifically designed experience to get you to spend the most amount of money when you're in that grocery store. And so this lesson is an important lesson, I think, in business for anybody that has a physical space that they do business in.
yeah.
Is what is your first impression, and what does that say about that, about the business? Feng Shui people talk about this all the time. They talk about this concept of having something feel right. um, and it gets, sometimes people don't give it the amount of respect that it requires. But the one analogy I would say that I use with CFOs all the time, because CFOs are, it's the analytical brain. So if I were to take two buildings, identical, okay, identical construction, identical furnishings, okay, um, same zip code, same everything. One happens to be located with a view of the ocean. The
Mhm.
other is across the street without the view. Which one sells for a higher per square foot price?
Oh,
Everybody
easily.
knows the ocean view wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Um, and that is because we have a universal value. So whether or not you come from the plains where there's no oceans, or you come from a place where there's oceans everywhere, you both of you value that same view because you're a human being. And so in business, this is a big lesson that I've learned over time, and that is nature analogies hit home a lot harder because you relate to more people. I see all the time business people using sports analogies to try to drive a point. Um, that works if your audience knows the sports game. Um, I think that's a bit of an assumption that I don't think business people should assume any longer, especially in a more global, um, in a diverse business environment.
Yeah. 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 Wow. So then when it comes to all this stuff that you've been talking about, Shane, um, so now I want to so I'm trying to figure out how to think about how I want to phrase this question, how I want to word this question. So when we look at the not the wedding venue side of what you do, but like serving businesses and locations around the country and stuff. So what is a result that has come from you guys just doing what you do with a client? How have you guys helped clients, and what is kind of a result that you guys doing what you do have produced for a client that you're just like incredibly proud of? And you don't have to name names or anything. You can if you want. That's totally your call. But give us an example of like results that have come from doing this.
The results that I like the best are what I do for, I would say, what we would consider to be ordinary businesses that we're all going into on a daily basis, and may not realize that there's plants and flowers there, whether
Okay.
they be live or faux. By the way, just like on how a fishing lure or a duck decoy works in nature, faux plants do have that effect on people too in many regards.
Sure.
So we can be fooled psychologically to help influence those things. So it may not be as effective because if you if you if the veil is understood as not real, then it's not as enjoyable, and it's certainly not luxurious if anything's fake, right?
Mhm.
But I would say that I help my customers make good choices. And sometimes it is faux foliage. Most of the times it is live foliage.
Okay.
But they come to us with a design concept, and then we figure out how to make it realistic, how to make it affordable so it works with their budget, and how to make it overall feasible so it can be maintained and look good for the foreseeable future. A lot of customers, when I mentioned the wind analogy, they go, well, they have a bigger budget than us to do that. They have the scale. They actually, at one point, they had 100 employees that worked in horticultural grounds alone. I don't know
Wow.
what their, how many people they have doing that job today is. But I would say that the practical approach that we take as a company is what I'm most proud of,
Yeah.
because it brings it right down to Main Street. Um, we can talk about the casinos, but it's really about how does that credit union make you feel when you walk in
Mhm.
the door?
Mhm.
And that is an element of customer service and the customer experience. And that's what I'm all about, is making that customer experience the best it can be.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so now that listeners have a little bit of context into what you do and the kind of results you get for clients on both sides of this, whether it's businesses or whether it's a bride and groom getting ready to get married and stuff. I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about the relationship side of all of this. And so, Shane, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Sure. So I'd like to start and say that I consider relationships within the top three duties that I have as the CEO of my company. And that was actually solidified when I joined an organization called YPO, which is stands for the Young Presidents Organization. And I have a small inner circle, and we communicate on a regular basis on it. And so the three main duties that I learned through my YPO group is don't run out of money, right people, right seats, and most importantly for my time, building relationships. Those are the three main duties for me as a CEO. And once I understood that, wow, the doors have opened up incredibly. So I would say that my individual, experience of YPO was in fact the bigger aha moment when it comes to relationship building.
Mhm.
Um, in terms of most influential person in my life, I have to give some credit to my father, which I know sounds like it's not fair to answer the question that way, but he taught me another skill. It's called creative visualization, and he did
Okay.
that when I was, a very young child. And it's kind of along the lines of manifest destiny, and it's being able to visually see where I want to go in order to get there. And that is a skill that I continue to use every day.
Mhm. So let's dig deeper into that. What does that skill look like in real life, Shane? In real, like, just practical use.
Well, it I've always been a dreamer in many ways, and that should not come as a surprise. I our botanical conservatory is a dream. I continue to dream up of improvements that we're doing there. We're doing a big expansion right now with gardens, for us to become a much more layered botanical garden experience on the grounds outside the conservatory, also within it. Um, so it's being able to have a vision and then execute on it. And I think it's kind of like a muscle that has to be exercised.
Mhm.
And that's the difference between maybe a dreamer that might get criticized around their heads in the clouds, which my head is in the clouds quite a bit, believe me. Um, but I've learned how to turn that into action.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so that is the bridge there. That's the hard part, is how do you turn it into action?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a lot of hard work and trial and error, but also it's understanding what you want and sticking to that vision.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what being an entrepreneur truly is.
Yeah.
So much of business is really about replication, duplicating, um, comparing something with a benchmark of somewhere else. And if you can creatively visualize something different that can't quite be benchmarked, um, then you're a true entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel in a lot of ways, Shane, that you are in uncharted territory because there's maybe not other people to look at to see? I mean, yeah, you've given the example of like wins and all that, but like, I bet you feel like in a lot of ways there's not a whole lot of other people, other businesses to look at to like really draw from for what you're doing, or is there? I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
I'm sure I'm inspired by everything. Um, so I don't see it as a scarcity. I actually see it as abundance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a world traveler. I've been to more than 45 countries. Um, I'm traveling internationally, a good, few times a year at least. And so I build my own experiences and my own personal catalog from experience those things with my own eyes and my own ears to even just, taste different flavors. To me, that's what the world is all about.
Yeah.
So there's no shortage of inspiration out there. And I think, another phrase that I would like to borrow from a friend of mine who's an artist, who's kind of retired, but never fully retired. He has this phrase, he says, creative people are never bored.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and and so if you truly if you truly live by that, there's no real such thing as boredom or retirement or saying there's not something for me out there.
Yeah.
um, if you're saying that, you're just not being creative enough.
Yeah. Amen. Absolutely. Wow. Well, so if we look at this relationship with you and your dad, what is an example of a situation where you personally, as a result of what he taught you, got to make a really substantial impact? And I don't know if maybe it even surprised you in the moment, or maybe you just, because you visualized it in advance, you totally expected it. But what's an example of something like that where you were empowered that way, and you know that that would have never been possible if not for the relationship that you and your dad have?
I think I would go back to one of the very first projects very early in my career,
Okay.
which actually was at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas.
Okay.
So there was a chef. He's now passed. His name is Joel Robuchon, and he had a contract to open his very first restaurant in the United States. Um, and that was the Joel Robuchon restaurant at the MGM Grand.
Okay.
And in his contract, it said that he was going to have a terrace. Except the challenge was, there was a big hotel above where the terrace was supposed to be. There's no windows. So how do you create a terrace experience, for an interior space with
Yeah.
no natural light, no windows? Um, and so it was those constraints that forced me to try to visualize what is the solution here. And
Mhm.
so this was in 2005, so
Okay.
more than 20 years ago. And the solution was to do a curved living wall. And this was before any living wall systems or companies were out there.
Okay.
So
Wow.
we had to create it from scratch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, and and it was successful. It worked. It did work. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's really something. You know, they got like a big living wall like that. They redid Key Arena in Seattle a few years back, and then and in the process they redid the whole venue and then renamed it Climate Pledge. And now they've got a big, huge living wall in there, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And like every time you go there to an event, there's people, before and after the event, just standing around taking pictures of that because it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And
Right.
well,
Yeah. That is the Instagram moment. It's the nature that's inspiring. Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, for anybody that might be listening to this and thinking like, man, Kevin, I really love Shane. I love who he is. I love how he shows up. And maybe I don't know if they're driving or not. If they haven't maybe already been like trying to track you down on the internet and find websites and all that. I want to make sure that we share stuff with them. So any websites, any info that we can include with the show notes for folks?
Absolutely. So Plantera.com. Plantera is the
Okay.
name of my company, and our URL is Plantera.com, two R's in
You are.
Plantera. That is our corporate company that does work nationally. And then our conservatory, our botanical conservatory, can be found at planteraevents.com.
Okay. Perfect.
Um, and you could always do an image search of our conservatory to see what I'm speaking about in terms of that magical experience in a private building, by the way. A lot of people assume that it's only possible as a, government funded botanical garden, but we've achieved it as a private operation.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that. Wow. Well, is there any last thing that you feel led to share before we call it a wrap, Shane?
I just would like to return to this concept of relationships. And I just wanted to applaud you, Kevin, for being such a strong relationship builder. Because I believe in the human connection. I believe in experiencing things as a human being. I know this is a virtual interview, but I think this is one way of connecting to people. So I just wanted to thank you for doing that and having me on your program.
Well, I'll tell you, for one, you are so welcome, Shane, and I want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation today and just share from your heart because this has been really phenomenal, and I am totally stoked to get this out there and share it with other folks. So, yeah, thank you, Shane. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate you.
I, I and I do have one thing to close on, and that
Okay,
is nature never goes out of style.
that is right.
Um, it's never going to be dated. No one's ever going to be tired of a forest or a tree or a flower. So plant that garden, plant those trees, um, because future generations will appreciate them
Yep.
just as much, if not more, than when you have it now.
Amen. Absolutely. Well, Shane, once again, thank you so much. Really appreciate you.